Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we cut through the noise and get straight to the insights you need to be truly well-informed. Ever felt like the world of startup equity is a total black box? Where some get a massive piece of the pie and others are left wondering, well, why they were left out in the cold. Today, we're not just peeking inside that box, we're kind of shattering it. We're talking about a revolutionary new blueprint. It's designed to fundamentally redefine how wealth and power could be distributed in the new economy.
That's right. Our mission in this deep dive is to unpack just such a groundbreaking paradigm. It's called the 30-30-30-10 formula. And look, this isn't just a slight tweak to existing models. It's a comprehensive blueprint for startup equity distribution. It aims to move decisively beyond those traditional, often frankly contentious approaches we've seen so much. We're talking about a model that promises a more equitable, productive, and sustainable future for tech startups, especially as we shift into what's increasingly being called the age of abundance.
And that's exactly it. This isn't simply about percentages on some spreadsheet. It's about a completely new philosophy for building companies, one that helps us all understand how wealth and power could be structured and shared. You're going to get some truly surprising facts today and definitely some aha moments cutting through all that overwhelming information overload. Our source material for today is a detailed visionary document that lays out this entire model. It really delves into its core philosophy, its intricate mechanics, and its profound potential impact. So let's unpack this blueprint for a new kind of startup. Okay, let's start by painting the really big picture, right? The canvas on which this new equity model is designed to operate. For most of human history, our collective story has been defined by scarcity. It's kind of the baseline. It's the reason societies have grappled with limited resources, leading to conflicts over land, energy, water, an entire economy structured around the fundamental principles of supply and demand, all constrained by what was, quite simply, available. It's been a zero-sum game, really.
And that's precisely what's changing, fundamentally. The age of abundance isn't just some, aspirational concept we talk about in futurist circles anymore. It's an evolving reality, unfolding before our eyes, driven by a powerful convergence of technological advancements. And this isn't just about making more stuff, which, let's be honest, has always been the industrial goal. It's about transcending those traditional limits of production and distribution altogether. I mean, imagine for a moment a world where clean energy is virtually free, accessible globally, or where food production is completely decoupled from traditional arable land, maybe grown in vertical farms or even lab settings. A world where medical breakthroughs render deadly diseases basically obsolete. That's the profound promise of abundance. Democratizing access to resources in ways we've never seen before, moving us away from that zero-sum mindset.
Wow, that sounds almost utopian, really. And it's all thanks to certain key technologies that are just exploding right now. But what are the concrete shifts making this more than just a dream? Are we talking about one or two breakthroughs, or is it something more interconnected?
Oh, it's definitely more interconnected. These aren't isolated advancements. They're deeply synergistic. They create these powerful ripple effects that truly amplify their transformative potential. First and foremost, we have artificial intelligence and machine learning. AI has rapidly evolved from a niche academic field to a cornerstone of modern innovation. Machine learning algorithms, for instance, can now analyze vast data sets, identify complex patterns, and make decisions with a precision that often surpasses human capabilities. We're seeing it revolutionize everything from healthcare, think AI-driven diagnostics, detecting diseases earlier, more accurately, to transportation, with autonomous vehicles promising safer, more efficient, and eventually, significantly cheaper systems. The computational power, the pattern recognition, it's redefining possibilities across basically every industry.
And then there's the biological revolution, which, yeah, feels like science fiction becoming reality right before our eyes.
Precisely. Biotechnology and genomics are redefining our relationship with biology itself. The foundational mapping of the human genome, coupled with revolutionary gene editing tech like CRISPR, well, it's unlocked unprecedented potential. We're not just talking about curing genetic disorders, but fundamentally enhancing human health, extending lifespan. But it stretches far beyond that. We're talking about enhancing agricultural productivity, developing drought-resistant crops, and even enabling the creation of entirely new materials and fuels through synthetic biology. It's truly pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible with life itself, turning biology into, like, a programmable interface.
And all this while tackling one of humanity's biggest, most existential challenges.
Energy. Indeed. Renewable energy and battery storage are absolute cornerstones of this age of abundance. Solar and wind power aren't just becoming cost competitive. In many regions, they're now demonstrably cheaper than traditional fossil fuels. The critical piece, though, the real game changer, is the rapid advancement in battery storage technology. Innovations like solid-state batteries and massive grid-scale storage solutions are addressing the intermittency problem. The sun doesn't always shine, the wind doesn't always blow. This makes clean energy accessible, reliable, and eventually, potentially virtually free on a global scale. It's about empowering communities everywhere with sustainable power.
Okay, so we can produce clean energy and maybe even redesign life itself, but once we have the power and the blueprints, how do we actually build these new realities? What about the physical act of creation?
That leads us directly to advanced manufacturing and robotics. Technologies like additive manufacturing, 3D printing, are truly democratizing production. You can now create incredibly complex objects directly from digital designs. This dramatically reduces waste, allows for highly localized production, which really disrupts those traditional centralized global supply chains we're so used to. When you combine this with advanced robotics, it becomes possible to produce goods with minimal human intervention. That dramatically reduces costs and significantly increases efficiency and precision across a vast array of industries.
And of course, none of this really takes off without truly global, pervasive connectivity. It's like the nervous system for everything else, right?
Exactly. The Internet of Things, IoT, and connectivity tie it all together, acting as that crucial nervous system. The proliferation of IoT devices is blurring the lines between the physical and digital worlds, creating this intelligent, interconnected environment. Imagine smart cities dynamically optimizing resource use, or precision agriculture enhancing efficiency by monitoring, like, every single plant. Beyond that, advancements in connectivity itself, like ultra-fast 5G networks and burgeoning satellite internet, are actively bridging the digital divide. They're ensuring that even the most remote regions of the world can fully participate in and benefit from this new interconnected economy. It's about information flowing freely, instantly.
It sounds like a world where the old rules of supply and demand, where resources are inherently finite, just don't apply in the same way. So if technology is driving us towards a world where resources are no longer truly scarce, why do we still operate on these old economic models? Why do we need this radical concept of abundance economics?
That's the fundamental rethink required.
Yeah.
Traditional economics is, like you said, built entirely on the premise of scarcity. But as technology drives the marginal cost of many goods and services down towards near zero, that scarcity-based paradigm becomes increasingly outdated, even, frankly, detrimental. Abundance economics shifts the focus entirely. It's about leveraging these technological advancements to create systems that prioritize universal access, sustainability, and equity. For universal access, it means rethinking everything from property rights and intellectual property laws to ensuring fundamental access to essential services like education, healthcare, digital literacy. We already see this philosophy manifesting in the rise of open-source models and cooperative platforms that prioritize sharing over hoarding.
And sustainability is key here, isn't it? We can't just consume endlessly, even if it feels like we have infinite digital resources. There are still physical limits.
Absolutely. While abundance promises to alleviate many forms of scarcity, it simultaneously raises critical concerns about environmental impact and resource consumption. We can't ignore that. Abundance economics profoundly emphasizes sustainable practices. It leverages circular economy principles to minimize waste, maximize resource reuse, and ensure long-term viability for both humanity and the planet. It's not about endless wasteful consumption. It's about efficient, regenerative, and thoughtful use of resources. And crucially, it's about equity and inclusion. The profound benefits of this technological progress must be distributed equitably to avoid exacerbating existing inequalities. Policies like universal basic income, robust digital literacy programs, and truly inclusive innovation strategies are essential. They ensure that no one is left behind in this transformative age, that these new riches don't just concentrate at the very top.
Okay, so if this is the grand vision, a world of abundance driven by tech, guided by principles of universal access and equity, how do startups fit into this? They often seem like these chaotic, fast-moving entities focused intensely on rapid growth, sometimes at any cost.
That's a great question, and it's precisely where startups become so critical. They are, in fact, arguably the most agile engines of this transformation. Unlike established, often bureaucratic corporations, startups operate with remarkable agility. They embrace risk. They consistently challenge the status quo. They're often the first to identify emerging opportunities, experiment with novel solutions, and, crucially, rapidly scale these exponential technologies into real-world applications. We see them disrupting traditional industries. I mean, think of Tesla completely revolutionizing the automotive industry, not just with electric cars, but with a software-first approach. or fintech startups democratizing access to financial services for previously underserved populations around the world. They are directly scaling exponential technologies, like biotech startups accelerating drug discovery using AI and machine learning, or clean tech companies pioneering advancements in renewables and carbon capture. Startups also create vibrant ecosystems of innovation, operating within these dynamic networks of accelerators, incubators, venture capital, academic institutions, fostering unparalleled collaboration and knowledge sharing. And critically, many are explicitly mission-driven, founded with the express goal of addressing global challenges like poverty, climate change, healthcare access. They prove that innovation can indeed be a powerful force for good, aligning profit motives directly with social impact. They're the nimble pioneers, really. Hashtag take it 1.2. The problem with current equity models.
Now let's zoom in a bit from that grand, inspiring vision to the often messy, sometimes frustrating reality of how startups actually operate. Equity distribution. It's foundational to a startup's success, right? It determines who owns what, but it's often fraught with challenges. Can you give us a bit of a historical overview of how this has played out? Maybe some cautionary tales so we really understand the problems this new model is trying to solve.
You're right, the story of startup equity distribution is pretty much as old as the tech industry itself. And those early decisions often had massive lasting impacts. They shaped not just company culture, but the broader perception of fairness or unfairness. Take Microsoft, for example. Founded by Bill Gates and Paul Allen, their early equity split was, well, foundational. While key early employees like Steve Ballmer definitely benefited immensely from their stock options. Later stories often highlighted instances where other early contributors felt sidelined or undervalued despite their significant indispensable roles in the company's meteoric growth. It kind of set a precedent for what some might call a founder first, then maybe investor first approach. Then consider Google. Their initial equity distribution was heavily weighted toward the co-founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin. While they did expand it to include equity for critical early hires like Eric Schmidt, debates emerged as the company grew around the perceived disproportionate influence and wealth accumulation of the founders compared to other critical contributors who built the infrastructure. The people making it work. And Facebook's equity history, as captured in various accounts and, well, famously in movies, arguably serves as the most prominent cautionary tale. Mark Zuckerberg's decision to dilute Eduardo Saverin's shares during the company's formative years. Well, while perhaps legally sound, it highlighted the extreme potential for conflict and personal animosity inherent in traditional, often less transparent, equity models. Even if such actions aligned with short-term business interests, they created long-term tensions, both within the company and, importantly, in public perception. It really contributed to that narrative of startup founders as these all-powerful, sometimes ruthless figures. The general takeaway from these hugely successful companies is that their equity models, despite their triumphs, often prioritize founders and early investors over the broader team. And that set a problematic precedent for the entire startup landscape that honestly continues to this day.
Okay, so if that's the historical context, sometimes pretty problematic, what are the core challenges of these traditional models that we see persisting today? What's the status quo that really needs disrupting?
Yeah, there are three primary issues that continue to stand out, even in our modern startup ecosystem. First, founder nomination. Now, founders undeniably play an absolutely critical role, right? They shape the vision, take the initial risks, drive the trajectory. However, they often wield disproportionate control over equity allocation and decision-making. This reinforces hierarchical power structures, sometimes institutionalized through mechanisms like dual-class stock structures, which grant founders outsized voting power even as their economic stakes might decrease over time. This unchecked dominance can create significant resentment and a sense of disenfranchisement among early team members whose contributions were equally instrumental in bringing that vision to life. Second, we often see investor-centric approaches. Venture capitalists and other early investors typically negotiate significant equity stakes in exchange for crucial funding. And while capital is absolutely essential for growth, this emphasis on maximizing investor returns often skews incentives towards short-term financial gains. It pushes for rapid exits like acquisitions or IPOs that primarily maximize their returns. These moves can sometimes be misaligned with the company's long-term mission, its innovative potential, or the interests of its employees who have poured their lives into the venture. And third, and perhaps most damaging, is the widespread team marginalization. Early employees, the true builders, often receive relatively small, often opaque equity stakes. Beyond that, vesting schedules and other contractual mechanisms can make it incredibly difficult for employees to realize the full value of their equity, particularly if they leave the company before a major liquidity event or if the company's value doesn't appreciate as expected. This marginalization leads to decreased morale, reduced productivity because people don't feel true ownership, and high turnover rates. Ultimately, it deters top talent who are increasingly looking for opportunities where their efforts are fairly recognized and truly rewarded. It's a significant drain on potential.
So it's not just about a few unhappy employees then. These structures have profound, far-reaching consequences for innovation and productivity across the board. They even affect how society distributes wealth, it sounds like.
Absolutely. The inequities inherent in traditional equity models ripple through the entire organization and, frankly, the broader industry, creating systemic issues. They can stifle innovation because when employees feel undervalued or disempowered, they are less likely to fully invest their creativity. They might withhold their best ideas or even leave for competitors, eroding the startup's most vital asset, its innovative potential. This also directly undermines productivity, as low morale and high attrition rates directly impact operational efficiency and significantly drive up recruitment and training costs. It's a constant churn, a real drag. Beyond the company walls, these models often exacerbate inequalities in wealth distribution. By concentrating wealth among a small group of founders and investors, they reinforce systemic disparities, which is particularly concerning for underrepresented groups who already face significant barriers to equitable compensation and wealth creation. And finally, it impacts a company's reputation and long-term viability. Companies known for equitable practices attract the very best talent. They build sustainable, resilient cultures that customers trust. Conversely, those associated with inequitable or exploitative practices risk severe reputational damage. That can deter potential collaborators, future investors, and even loyal customers. It's not just a moral failing, it's a business one at the end of the day.
It really sounds like we're at a critical inflection point where a fundamental shift is desperately needed. We've seen the pitfalls of the old way, and now it's time to explore what a better, more equitable path might actually look like.
Indeed. Addressing these systemic challenges requires a fundamental rethink of how ownership and value are structured within a company. Emerging alternatives like employee stock ownership plans, ESOPs, and various profit-sharing mechanisms offer promising ways to align incentives across all contributors. And this sets the stage perfectly for the model we're about to dive into, a model that proposes a truly equitable distribution, the 30-30-30-10 formula.
Okay, we've laid out the problems pretty clearly, but what's the actual solution? This next section is where the groundbreaking proposal comes to life, and I think listeners are going to find this fascinating. The 30-30-30-10 formula is designed to be the direct answer to those deep-seated challenges of traditional equity models. It's built from the ground up to balance fairness, productivity, and crucially, long-term sustainable growth.
That's precisely it. At its core, the 30-30-30-10 formula proposes a new standard for dividing equity. It distributes it equitably among four distinct yet equally vital key stakeholders: the founders, the team, investors, and perhaps most uniquely, a significant allocation for a dedicated foundation. Like I said, this isn't just a simple adjustment of percentages, it's a fundamental paradigm shift. It explicitly moves away from the traditional founder or investor-dominated models we've criticized. It recognizes that a startup's enduring success relies on multifaceted contributions from all parties involved. And crucially, it includes an embedded structural commitment to societal impact from day one.
Okay, let's break down these components in detail then. What does that 30% for founders actually mean, and why that specific number?
Right, for the 30% for founders, this allocation is about acknowledging their undeniable pivotal role. They're the visionaries, right? They conceive the initial idea, take on immense personal risk, lay the foundational groundwork for the entire enterprise. This percentage is designed to ensure they are adequately rewarded and deeply motivated, aligning their interests with the company's long-term success. But the crucial impact here is that by limiting their allocation to 30%, unlike older models where founders might retain 50%, 70%, or even more, it actively prevents disproportionate or unchecked control. This fosters a genuinely collaborative environment where founders are incentivized to lead with vision, but are also intrinsically accountable to the broader team and investors from the outset. It's leadership, not absolute monarchy.
And the people who are actually building the product, interacting with customers, making it all happen, they also get a very significant piece. That's a huge departure from the historical marginalization we just discussed.
Absolutely. The 30% for the team recognizes an undeniable truth. They are the backbone, the hands, and the brains of a startup success. Engineers, product managers, marketers, designers, sales teams, customer service, all employees bring the founder's vision to life, day in and day out. Giving them meaningful, substantial ownership transforms them from mere employees into genuine stakeholders. The impact is profound. It dramatically improves morale, significantly boosts retention because people have a real reason to stay and grow with the company, and directly increases productivity. This allocation attracts top talent in a hyper-competitive market, fosters a deep culture of ownership and accountability, and creates a virtuous cycle of innovation and loyalty within the organization. They're not just building a company, they're building their company.
Then there's the crucial capital that gets these companies off the ground and helps them scale. Investors are still essential, clearly, but their role seems redefined here, maybe more balanced.
You're right. The 30% for investors acknowledges that they provide the critical capital and strategic guidance. They often take significant risks, especially in those early rounds. This balanced share is meticulously designed to manage their need for substantial returns without, crucially, excessively diluting the shares of other stakeholders, which, as we said, has been a major historical pain point. The impact is that it aligns investors' interests directly with the company's long-term vision. It ensures that their pursuit of returns naturally supports the overall health and growth. This prevents the team and founders from being marginalized by an overbearing or maybe short-sighted investor influence. It fosters a true partnership rather than just a one-sided financial arrangement.
And finally, that truly unique, truly transformative piece, the 10% for the foundation. This feels like the soul of the model, maybe.
This 10% for the foundation is indeed what fundamentally sets this model apart and, in my view, makes it revolutionary. It's not an afterthought or some side project. It's a structural, embedded commitment to societal impact and the company's foundational mission from day one. This allocation is explicitly reserved for initiatives like corporate social responsibility, environmental sustainability efforts, community development programs, or even funding research into grand challenges. The rationale is clear. Modern businesses are increasingly judged not just on their profitability, but on their tangible contributions to society and the planet. By embedding these values from the outset, the impact is immense. It dramatically enhances the company's reputation, actively attracts socially conscious investors and employees, and ensures that societal impact remains a core, integral focus of the business, not just some marketing add-on.
So it's really not just about splitting the pie in a slightly different way. It's about shifting the very philosophy of how a company is built, right from its deepest DNA.
Exactly. This formula fundamentally moves away from the traditional, often contentious, founder or investor-dominated models. It's a profound acknowledgement that truly sustainable, impactful business success, the kind that thrives in an age of abundance, requires the multifaceted, harmonious contributions of all these key stakeholders working in concert. It's about designing a system for shared value creation, not just, wealth extraction for a select few.
This model sounds rooted in a strong, almost intuitive sense of fairness. But how does that emphasis on fairness actually translate into tangible, real-world outcomes for a startup? I mean, does being nice actually pay off in business terms?
Well, fairness here isn't just about playing nice or being altruistic. It's actually a strategic superpower. The 30-30-30-10 formula ensures that each stakeholder's contributions are not just recognized, but truly rewarded proportionately. This builds an incredibly strong foundation of trust and collaboration. It actively avoids the deep-seated pitfalls and resentments we discussed earlier from traditional models. Imagine a company where no one is holding back their best ideas, where no one feels resentful about their share. Every brain cell is focused on shared success. That's the real insight here. Fairness isn't a cost. It's a profound investment with massive compounding returns. For instance, startups that genuinely implement equitable equity distribution consistently report significantly higher levels of employee satisfaction and, crucially, dramatically better retention rates. When team members feel genuinely valued and deeply invested, they don't just stay, they contribute more deeply, often going far beyond their job descriptions.
And fairness often translates directly into performance, doesn't it? It feels like there's a direct link to productivity.
It absolutely does. Equitable equity distribution has a direct, measurable impact on productivity. Employees who have a significant, meaningful stake in the company, well, they behave like owners. They are more intrinsically motivated to go above and beyond in their roles, to find efficiencies, to solve problems proactively. They quite literally think like entrepreneurs within the organization. Similarly, the balanced investor allocations ensure that capital providers remain engaged and supportive partners, providing strategic guidance without undermining the contributions of other stakeholders or pushing for those short-term unsustainable gains. Companies that adopt these truly equitable models frequently outperform their peers in terms of innovation, market adaptation, and operational efficiency, precisely because all parties are working cohesively with aligned interests toward shared goals. It's a virtuous cycle.
So this isn't just about feel-good metrics or internal morale. It's really about ensuring the company's long-term sustainability and potential for truly explosive growth.
That's the ultimate defining outcome. This formula intrinsically aligns the interests of all stakeholders, founders, team members, and investors. This significantly reduces internal conflicts, eliminates the kind of power struggles that can derail a company, and fosters a truly unified vision. The foundation component, in particular, ensures that societal impact is integrated into the company's growth strategy from day one, not bolted on later as an afterthought. This enhances its long-term viability and broadens its appeal. Companies with strong CSR initiatives and a genuine focus on sustainability are increasingly attractive. To socially conscious consumers, to investors who prioritize ESG, environmental social governance factors, and to strategic partners. This drives sustained, long-term success, proving unequivocally that profitability and purpose are not mutually exclusive but can, in fact, be deeply synergistic. This model builds companies designed to last and designed to truly matter.
Okay, now let's take a deep dive into that truly unique, truly visionary 10% allocation, the foundation. This isn't just about corporate charity, is it? It feels much deeper, like it's about structurally embedding service and purpose into the very DNA of the company, like changing how we even define business.
You've hit on the core insight there. This 10% isn't just philanthropy, which can often be reactive or feel separate from the core business. It's a structural commitment to social impact. It aligns directly with the principles of stakeholder capitalism, where businesses are accountable to a broader set of stakeholders beyond just shareholders. By allocating equity to the foundation, startups institutionalize their commitment to addressing societal challenges right from the outset. This ensures that their mission, whether it's environmental sustainability, digital literacy, or healthcare access, remains integral to their operations, even as they scale. It meets the growing expectations of consumers, investors, and employees who increasingly prioritize purpose alongside profit. This embeds sustainability and long-term value creation directly into the company. The foundation's equity stake provides a consistent, dedicated resource base for critical issues like climate change initiatives, global education, or equitable healthcare access. This ensures a consistent focus on enduring value over fleeting short-term gains, creating a lasting legacy. It also builds significant resilience in the face of challenges, fostering immense goodwill and enhancing reputation. In times of crisis or market volatility, a company with a strong, embedded social mission often acts as a buffer against reputational risks, attracting support and loyalty. And perhaps most powerfully, it significantly boosts employee engagement and retention. A clear structural commitment to social impact deeply resonates with employees, especially younger generations who are actively seeking purpose-driven work. This fosters profound loyalty and a sense of shared mission, reducing attrition.
So it's really not just a nice to have then. It actually helps foster collective ownership and aligns with the corporate culture in very concrete ways. Because everyone can literally point to that 10% as proof of the company's soul, its purpose.
It absolutely does. By dedicating 10% of equity to social impact, companies powerfully signal that their success is measured not solely by financial metrics, but equally by their tangible contributions to society and the planet. This promotes truly inclusive governance, as the foundation structure often includes diverse stakeholders, employees, community leaders, subject matter experts. This ensures its initiatives genuinely meet authentic community needs rather than being just top-down mandates. It helps in building a culture of accountability through transparency and oversight via regular reporting on social impact initiatives, holding the company to its word. And critically, it significantly enhances brand identity, differentiating the company in incredibly competitive markets by integrating purpose so deeply. This strengthens brand loyalty, attracts conscious consumers, and draws in impact-driven investors who are looking for more than just a return on investment.
That makes perfect sense. Can you give us some real-world examples of the kinds of social impact initiatives and governance models we're talking about here, just to make it feel less abstract?
Certainly. In terms of tangible initiatives, we've seen powerful examples like for environmental sustainability. Companies like Patagonia, which famously dedicates 1% of its sales to environmental preservation through its 1% for the Planet pledge, and proactively invests in renewable energy infrastructure. They truly exemplify how purpose can be integrated into every facet of operations. For community development, the Starbucks Foundation, for instance, focuses on supporting education, workforce development, and disaster relief programs globally, strengthening its ties to the communities it serves and reinforcing its brand as a community pillar. For access to technology, Microsoft's AI for Good initiative leverages cutting-edge artificial intelligence to address grand global challenges, from climate change mitigation to equitable healthcare access, showing how core tech expertise can be directly aligned with profound social impact. Regarding governance models for these foundations, many operate under independent boards or advisory committees. This ensures their mission isn't swayed by short-term business priorities or internal politics. Companies like Salesforce, for example, involve their employees directly in foundation decision-making, fostering a deeply ingrained sense of ownership and collective purpose. And we're increasingly seeing more hybrid models that combine internal oversight with external expertise, ensuring both strategic alignment with the company's vision and an independent perspective on impact effectiveness.
It really sounds like the implications of this foundation model stretch far beyond the individual company. It could literally change how we think about the role of business and society as a whole.
They absolutely do. This model helps in fundamentally redefining success itself, shifting the focus from just shareholder returns to holistic value creation that benefits all stakeholders and society at large. This can profoundly transform the broader business ecosystem. By addressing societal challenges at scale, these foundations can catalyze systemic change. They can influence public policy, inspire other businesses to adopt similar models, and thereby create a collective movement toward a more equitable and sustainable future. And finally, it significantly strengthens stakeholder trust by demonstrating a genuine, structural commitment to social responsibility. This is absolutely essential for building long-term partnerships and fostering goodwill in our increasingly interconnected, transparent world. It's about defining businesses as forces for good, from the start. #Take 3.2. Empowering founders and partners. Yeah. 30%.
Okay, so we've talked about the foundation, the company's social conscience, if you will. Now let's turn to the architects of these companies, the founders and their key partners. They have an immense role, clearly, and the 30% allocated to them recognizes that. It's a significant stake, but importantly, not the majority.
Founders are truly the creative and strategic architects, transforming visionary ideas into viable enterprises. Their journey is unique and profoundly challenging, let's be clear. They embody the initial vision and ideation, identifying unmet needs and painstakingly crafting solutions from scratch. In the early stages, they operate under severe resource constraints, managing incredibly limited capital, often recruiting top talent without the allure of competitive market salaries, and building operations from literally nothing. They must navigate immense uncertainty, making pivotal, often gut-wrenching, decisions with incomplete information in incredibly dynamic, unpredictable environments. And they require incredible resilience in the face of setbacks, constantly learning from inevitable mistakes, adapting strategies on the fly, and staying motivated despite countless rejections. Critically, they're responsible for building and sustaining culture, setting the foundational tone for collaboration, innovation, and ethical behavior. Their contributions providing strategic direction, attracting initial investment, inspiring and uniting early teams are truly indispensable. This justifies their equitable equity allocation within this model. But as you said, without the unchecked dominance of older models.
And how is that 30% typically structured within the leadership team itself? It's rarely just one person, right? Usually a few key individuals driving things forward.
You're right. It's designed for a core leadership team, not just one person holding all the cards. The model suggests a breakdown where the founder typically begins with 15% equity. This directly reflects their singular pioneering role and the initial risk they take. A co-founder who is instrumental in refining the original vision, bringing complementary skills and sharing the immense burden is typically allocated 5% equity. And then the remaining 10% is strategically reserved for up to 10 partners who join at various critical stages. These partners bring crucial, often specialized expertise, vital resources, and expansive networks to the table. This flexible pool acknowledges that a startup often needs a broader senior leadership team beyond just the initial founders to really scale.
And this 10% for partners, that's where the roundtable structure comes in, right? How does that specifically support collaboration among them? Does it prevent, too many chefs in the kitchen?
That's absolutely right. The roundtable isn't just a quaint name. It's a key governance model embedded within this formula. It explicitly emphasizes equality, deep collaboration, and collective decision-making. It promotes truly egalitarian decision-making. All partners contribute their perspectives equally, mitigating the risks and blind spots of unilateral decisions, which can be fatal for early-stage companies. It fosters profound shared accountability, as partners collectively bear responsibility for outcomes, creating mutual support and a stronger sense of team. It's excellent for leveraging complementary strengths, allowing the team to address incredibly complex challenges far more effectively than any single individual could. It also builds enhanced trust and cohesion through regular, transparent communication and open processes. And critically, it helps in mitigating founder burnout by distributing leadership responsibilities and the immense pressures of running a startup. Now, the criteria for these partners are quite specific to ensure alignment and real impact. They must have a proven track record as founder-CEO personalities, meaning they possess the rare ability to not just ideate, but to build, lead, and execute effectively. They're also expected to make a significant investment, not just of their intellectual expertise and time, but often financial as well, showing real skin in the game. And they must actively leverage their expertise, networks, and time for tangible, measurable value. The roundtable itself typically meets quarterly, either in person or virtually, to provide high-level strategic direction, engage in critical decision-making, and offer invaluable mentorship to the broader team.
It sounds like a fantastic way to bring in top-tier talent and expertise while distributing the burden of leadership. But how does this structure truly balance the founder's initial authority and vision with this idea of shared governance? Is there a risk of, I don't know, decision-making paralysis or too many cooks trying to steer the ship?
That balance is absolutely essential, you're right. It's vital for both sustained innovation and critical accountability. It requires a few key things. First, a clear definition of roles and responsibilities, for example. Founders might retain ultimate authority over the overarching strategic vision and core company culture, while partners provide invaluable operational expertise and leadership for specific business units. Second, strong checks and balances through mechanisms like independent advisory boards, robust investor oversight, and internal governance structures that provide constructive feedback and ensure decisions are well vetted. Third, transparent decision-making is crucial. This means open communication, clear documentation of processes, and established forums for discussion to avoid misunderstandings or back-channeling. Founders must also adopt an adaptive leadership style, transitioning from hands-on, micromanaging execution in the earliest days to a more delegative strategic role as the startup scales and the leadership team expands. The 30% allocation for founders and partners is precisely designed to strike this critical balance, recognizing foundational contributions while actively incentivizing this collaborative, distributed leadership approach that can better weather the storms of growth.
Any good examples of companies that have effectively implemented this kind of collaborative governance among their founders and early leadership teams where it genuinely worked in practice?
Absolutely. Think of Airbnb's founding team, Brian Chesky, Joe Gebbia, and Nathan Blecharczyk. They truly demonstrated the power of collaborative governance from their earliest days. They leveraged their complementary skills in design, community building, and technology, and maintained incredibly open communication channels. This led them to navigate significant early challenges and scale globally. Google's co-founders, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, also adopted a shared leadership model. And critically, they extended it to include key operational hires like Eric Schmidt, whose business and operational expertise perfectly complemented their technical vision. And then there's Ben & Jerry's. Their founders, Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield, famously prioritized shared governance and a deep commitment to social responsibility. They integrated it so thoroughly into their company culture and brand identity from the very beginning that it became inseparable from their success. These examples show it's not just theory, it really can work. Hashtag Tech2 3.3, elevating the team, 30%.
Okay, so we've talked about the founders who lay the groundwork and the partners who bring strategic expertise. But a startup is ultimately much more than just its top brass, isn't it? The critical, indispensable role of the broader team, those driving innovation and execution day in and day out, simply can't be overstated.
You're absolutely right. True. Sustainable success for any startup is profoundly a collective effort. Teams are the ones who transform abstract ideas and whiteboard drawings into tangible products, valuable services, and viable business models that actually work in the real world. They're the frontline builders, the sharp marketers, the tireless sellers, and the empathetic supporters of the company's offerings. Without a capable, motivated, and empowered team, no startup can truly thrive or scale beyond its initial idea. It just won't happen. They are the primary engine for driving innovation. They bring diverse perspectives, bottom-up creativity, and granular problem-solving to the table. Think of the engineers iterating on a groundbreaking solution, the marketers crafting compelling narratives that resonate with customers, or the customer service teams providing invaluable real-time insights into user needs from the front line. They're also absolutely crucial for executing the vision. While founders outline the grand strategy, it's the team that operationalizes every single detail, ensuring timelines are met, quality is maintained, and ambitious goals are achieved. They turn aspirations into reality. And finally, perhaps most subtly but powerfully, teams are instrumental in building organizational culture. Their daily interactions, shared values, and collective behaviors define the very workplace environment. which in turn attracts future talent and builds trust with all external stakeholders. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, as they say.
And this is where equity as a motivation comes in really powerfully. How does meaningful ownership actually enhance performance for the team? It sounds like much more than just a cash bonus.
Oh, equity ownership, when structured transparently and equitably, is incredibly powerful. It fundamentally transforms employees from just being workers into genuine stakeholders. This aligns their interests directly with the company's long-term success. When teams have meaningful ownership, their sense of accountability and commitment deepens intrinsically. It directly impacts their performance and productivity in ways that salary alone simply cannot. Specifically, it incentivizes long-term commitment. It creates a vested personal interest in the company's future, significantly reducing turnover and building invaluable institutional knowledge. People don't jump ship when they own a piece of the ship, right? It encourages entrepreneurial thinking because employees who truly feel like owners are far more likely to take initiative, propose innovative solutions, identify new opportunities, and go far beyond their defined job descriptions. It's also absolutely crucial for attracting and retaining top talent in today's fiercely competitive market. Competitive equity packages help startups stand out against larger, more established companies. And finally, shared ownership fundamentally fosters collaboration and accountability. It creates a truly cohesive environment where team members collectively hold each other accountable for achieving shared goals because everyone's success is intertwined.
Given that 30% of the company's equity is earmarked for the team, that's a really substantial chunk. How is that actually broken down in practice? Are there different tiers for different roles? And what about anti-dilution measures to protect their stake over time, especially through all those funding rounds?
Yeah, to maximize those motivational benefits and ensure fairness, it's vital to have transparent and equitable distribution frameworks. This involves carefully considered equity tiers. Foundational team members, those early critical hires who join when the risk is highest, often receive larger stakes. For example, a technical lead might get 5% equity, or a key marketing hire 3%, reflecting their early leap of faith and impact. Then there are key contributors, mid-level individuals who are critical for scaling operations. Their allocations balance their significant contributions with preserving equity for future hires. Needs careful thought. New hires, as the company matures and grows, typically receive smaller but still highly competitive packages, reflecting the reduced risk of joining a more established entity. And advisors and consultants are allocated equity from separate, distinct pools, usually around 0.51% over maybe a 2-year vesting period for their strategic guidance. Beyond this, there's always an equity pool for future hires, typically 10–15% of total equity, strategically reserved for anticipated needs as the company continues to grow and expand its team. You have to plan ahead. Regarding anti-dilution measures, the source emphasizes proactive strategies. This includes equity refresh programs, which provide additional grants to high performers to address dilution that naturally occurs over time through subsequent funding rounds or new hire grants. Keeps people engaged. There are also transparent dilution policies to manage expectations and build trust. Employees need to understand when and why dilution might occur. No nasty surprises. And employees are generally more accepting of growth-driven dilution when it's directly tied to value-adding activities like raising capital for expansion or strategic acquisitions, as opposed to, just bad management or poor planning. Crucially, the company aims to start with 100 million shares at launch, and this number is intended to remain constant for several years post-IPO. If additional shares do need to be issued strategically after the IPO, say, for a massive global expansion, issuing perhaps 10 million new shares would result in less than 10% dilution. The goal is that this minimal dilution would ideally be offset by a corresponding significant increase in the company's overall market value, so existing shareholders are not truly losing value. This is a significant structural safeguard for the team.
That's a very detailed and thoughtful structure for equity. But how exactly is this team equity structured for longevity, especially with potentially so many layers and considering different join dates? That sounds complex.
The source outlines a very specific structural element to manage this complexity. A 10-layer system for equity distribution within the team. This systematically categorizes roles, from the board CEO down through executive team, VPs, division chiefs, managers, team leaders, and general team members, all the way to support roles. The equity allocation for an individual naturally increases based on their hierarchy, their tenure with the company, and crucially, the timing of when they join. The earlier you join, the higher the premium, basically. For the vesting schedule, it's a standard 5-year vesting period for all team members, calculated annually and precisely rounded to the nearest quarter. For example, an employee joining in February 2023 would complete their first vesting year at the end of March 2024. What's truly unique here is that early joiners receive a distinct premium equity allocation. They get 100% of their allocated equity in year 1, 95% in year 2, then 90% in year 3, 85% in year 4, and 80% from year 5 onward. This steeply incentivizes early commitment and loyalty. It's important to note that investors, on the other hand, are fully vested from the outset. Their risk profile is different. And critically, team members do not pay for their shares. This is sweat equity. It's awarded as a reward for their invaluable contributions, avoiding financial burdens that could deter participation or create unfair barriers. Ensuring longevity also involves proactively reserving equity for future hires, maintaining built-in flexibility to adjust allocations based on performance or changing market conditions, and always aligning equity with measurable contributions to the company's success. To further motivate the team, equity allocations are designed to be geography neutral, meaning the same role gets similar equity regardless of location. Those salaries are adjusted for purchasing power parity, PPP, which means what your money can actually buy in different places. That's only fair. Salaries are typically market competitive but strategically slightly below industry averages, emphasizing the substantial long-term value of the equity package. It's part of the deal. And they often use trial periods where new team members work as paid consultants before formal offers are extended, ensuring a mutually beneficial cultural and skill fit.
Okay, so the team gets a significant piece of the pie and clear protective vesting terms. That's huge. But what about their actual influence within the company? Does this model extend to their participation in governance beyond just compensation and that feeling of ownership?
Yes, absolutely. The future of team participation in governance is a foundational aspect of this model, not just some add-on. The 30-30-30-10 model proposes that the team will elect 3 members to a 10-person board of directors. This gives them a formal, powerful, and structural voice in strategic decisions at the highest level of the company. This is a significant step towards genuine employee representation on the board, fostering unprecedented transparency and inclusivity in governance. Beyond that, advisory councils composed of team representatives can influence key decisions and provide crucial ground-level insights without the full legal responsibilities of formal board membership. This approach ensures that decisions truly balance the interests of founders, investors, and employees. Everyone gets a say. It also powerfully drives innovation through inclusivity. The team's frontline insights into operations, customer needs, and emerging market trends significantly enrich strategic discussions and ultimately lead to better, more empathetic products and services. They know what's really going on. Hashtag Trade 3.4 investors as partners, 30%.
Now let's talk about the investors, who also get a 30% allocation. The idea here, as you mentioned, is to profoundly reimagine their role, moving them from just being, capital providers to being true aligned partners in the startup ecosystem. How does this shift actually happen in practice?
Yes, exactly. Traditionally, the relationship between investors and startups has often been quite transactional, primarily focused on financial returns, let's face it. But the 30-30-30-10 model fundamentally reimagines investors as true partners. The explicit goal is to deeply align their interests with those of the founders, the team, and the broader mission of the company. It emphasizes profound collaboration, shared risk, and long-term sustainable growth over merely rapid financial gains. Investors are viewed as strategic collaborators who bring in valuable expertise, extensive networks, and crucial strategic guidance beyond just the capital itself. They actively contribute to strategic planning, talent acquisition, market expansion, even navigating complex regulatory landscapes. They bring know-how. This approach also powerfully promotes shared values, as modern enlightened investors increasingly prioritize alignment with a startup's mission and its ethical framework. They want more than just money back. This fosters profound trust and ensures all stakeholders work collaboratively toward common goals, including that societal impact piece. It strongly encourages long-term thinking, shifting the focus from pushing for rapid, perhaps premature exits to cultivating sustainable growth and enduring value creation. And critically, the equitable 30% allocation balances influence. It ensures investors are influential and respected partners without dominating or overshadowing the contributions and interests of other stakeholders. It's about collective stewardship, not just capital control.
A common and often very contentious mechanism in venture capital is the anti-dilution clause, designed to protect an investor's stake if things go south or valuations change. How does this model handle those? And what's their impact on long-term returns and, maybe more importantly, team morale?
Yeah, anti-dilution clauses are indeed common mechanisms. They're designed to protect investors' equity stakes, particularly during subsequent funding rounds where a company might raise money at a lower valuation, a down round. There are types like full ratchet anti-dilution, which can severely dilute founders and early team members by recalculating an investor's equity based on the lowest price of subsequent rounds. Very harsh. Then there's weighted average anti-dilution, which is more balanced but still impacts other stakeholders significantly. The source explains that excessive reliance on these clauses can significantly undermine team morale and founder motivation by eroding their hard-earned equity, thereby stifling innovation and creating real resentment. It feels unfair. The 30-30-30-10 perspective is that by allocating equity more equitably and transparently from the outset, it fundamentally reduces the need for aggressive anti-dilution protections. This fosters inherent trust and ensures that any equity dilution, if it occurs, is shared proportionally across all stakeholders, thereby preserving alignment and collaboration. Perhaps the most crucial and frankly radical feature of this model is no liquidation preference. In traditional deals, investors often get their initial money back, guaranteed, plus maybe a multiple, before anyone else sees a dime, even if the company struggles or sells for less than expected. But with this model, investors truly sink or swim alongside the company. Their success is directly aligned with its overall performance, fostering a much deeper sense of shared purpose and shared risk. There are no special carve-outs or guarantees. Everyone wins or loses together. That's true partnership.
Wow, that is a significant departure from traditional VC models. So, given that, how are funding rounds actually structured for sustainable growth and mutual benefit within this 30% investor allocation? It sounds like there's a very specific plan.
It's a very deliberate, structured approach, yes. The model outlines a careful structure for funding rounds designed to optimize value and partnership. It emphasizes prioritizing fair valuations, using realistic projections that prevent unrealistic expectations or excessive dilution in early stages. Start sane. It strategically considers equity versus convertible instruments, noting that direct equity sales offer greater clarity and immediate alignment, while convertible notes or safes might defer valuation decisions but carry their own complexities and potential misalignments later. It strongly advocates for milestone-based funding, which ensures capital is deployed effectively, linked to demonstrable progress, and consistently builds investor confidence. Show, don't just tell. And it stresses the paramount importance of balancing control and collaboration through careful negotiation of board seats, voting rights, and veto powers, ensuring that the interests and contributions of all stakeholders are respected. A key element outlined in the source is a disciplined 10-round structure, where the 30% investor equity is methodically divided, with roughly 3% distributed in each round. In early rounds, the focus is on securing foundational investments at reasonable valuations. For example, if a company is valued at $10 million, a $1 million investment might typically buy you 10% equity in a traditional model. But here, the investor pays a premium for the inherent anti-dilution safeguard built into the overall model, maybe receiving 1% or less instead of the full 3% allocated for the round, signifying their long-term partnership rather than a short-term grab. In subsequent rounds, as the company grows and its valuation increases significantly, later investors acquire smaller percentages for larger investments, reflecting the reduced risk. The company aims to limit equity allocation to that 3% per round maximum, strategically creating scarcity and driving up the value of subsequent shares. Once that 3% allocation threshold per round is reached, further investments for that round are closed. This drives scarcity and value, forcing disciplined capital raising. The ultimate ambitious aim described is to achieve IPO by round 5, with valuation exceeding $1 billion. This provides significant liquidity and returns for early investors while still retaining maximum flexibility for the company's future growth.
That's a very specific, almost formulaic approach to funding, aiming for an early IPO. That's interesting. Can you give us some case studies that contrast how traditional investor approaches have played out versus what the 30-30-30-10 model aims for in terms of partnership and long-term sustainability?
Certainly. For a clear example of a traditional investor-centric model that faced significant challenges, you could look at WeWork. Its aggressive valuation growth was often driven by an investor influence that, in retrospect, led to misaligned priorities and unsustainable hypergrowth practices. It ultimately resulted in significant struggles and a very public implosion. The focus was arguably on rapid, often unrealistic financial returns above almost everything else. In contrast, while not strictly following the 30-30-30-10 formula perhaps, companies that embody the collaborative growth principles offer powerful insights. Patagonia, for example, while not a traditional startup, has governance and equity practices that prioritize sustainability and collective benefit over pure profit. They reflect a deep mission alignment that attracts a loyal customer base and patient capital. Stripe, the payments giant, has largely maintained trust and fostered innovation through what is generally perceived as equitable allocations for founders, team, and investors, allowing for long-term growth and stability. And Beyond Meat, attracted investors specifically aligned with its sustainability and plant-based food mission, demonstrating how financial performance and profound societal impact can be beautifully balanced and mutually reinforcing. These show that a different way is not only possible, but can lead to powerful, lasting companies.
Okay, what happens after a company goes public? We often hear about new shares being issued, and that can lead to dilution for existing shareholders, including the team. How does the 30-30-30-10 model factor in understanding post-IPO dilution as a strategic tool for continued growth and sustainability, rather than just a necessary evil?
Right, post-IPO dilution is a natural and potentially strategic aspect of a company's mature life cycle. It's not inherently bad if done right. The pre-IPO strategy in this model is crucial. The 30% allocated to investors is fully distributed over those initial 5-6 rounds before the IPO. This caps investor equity specifically to retain maximum flexibility for the company in its public life. That's key. After the IPO, dilution isn't just something to be avoided. It becomes a strategic tool for sustained growth. It allows the company to raise additional funds without debt for massive expansion, entry into new markets, or intensive R&D, fueling continued innovation. It enables issuing shares to new team members as pre-IPO pools are depleted, ensuring new, crucial talent feels genuine ownership and is incentivized for performance. Got to keep attracting talent. And importantly, it can be used as valuable currency for strategic acquisitions, allowing the company to integrate complementary businesses and expand its ecosystem without draining cash reserves. Balancing stakeholder interest post-IPO is paramount, though. This involves protecting early stakeholders through safeguards like equity refresh programs or allowing them to participate proportionally in new offerings. Keep faith with the early believers. It means consistently incentivizing new team members with generous equity grants linked to performance investing schedules. It requires maintaining public shareholder confidence through incredibly transparent communication about how funds from new issuances will directly drive growth and create value for all. You have to explain the why. In terms of structuring post-IPO dilution, the model suggests careful, phased issuances. This could involve an initial limited issuance, perhaps 5% of shares, specifically earmarked for international expansion. This would be followed by periodic measured dilution for subsequent growth initiatives and the creation of a new, distinct equity pool specifically for future hires as the company scales its workforce. As a hypothetical case study, imagine TechVision Inc. successfully raising $100 million over 5 pre-IPO rounds, distributing its 30% investor equity and achieving a $1 billion valuation at IPO. Post-IPO, it might strategically issue 5% shares to raise an additional $50 million for aggressive global expansion into new continents. Simultaneously, it creates a new 5% equity pool to attract and incentivize thousands of new hires over the next few years. Later, it might raise another $200 million through further measured dilution over 3 years to fund strategic acquisitions or develop breakthrough new product lines. This demonstrates how balanced, thoughtful dilution can be a powerful engine for sustained growth rather than a detriment. Of course, challenges exist, such as the market's perception of over-dilution, its potential impact on stock price, and the complexity in equity management. However, these can be mitigated through capping annual dilution, clearly linking it to specific value-adding milestones, and having robust systems and expert teams in place for transparent communication and management.
Okay, so this model is designed for equitable distribution and sustainable growth. That's clear. But what does the roadmap actually look like for a startup using this model to become a $10 billion company, what we sometimes call a decacorn? That's an extraordinary leap, a huge ambition.
Achieving decacorn status, truly becoming a $10 billion company, requires not just exceptional vision, but incredibly disciplined, often, frankly, ruthless execution through distinct compounding phases. First, the foundational phase. This is where you define a crystal clear mission addressing a significant market need, assemble an initial incredibly talented and diverse team, and rigorously validate your idea with a minimum viable product, or MVP. Get that right, and you have a sturdy base. No shortcuts here. Then, the growth phase. This involves strategically securing funding from aligned investors who believe in your long-term vision, building robust operational infrastructure that can scale exponentially, that's harder than it sounds, and deploying aggressive market penetration strategies to capture market share. Gotta grow fast but smart. Finally, the maturity phase. This focuses on diversifying revenue streams beyond that initial product, strengthening financial performance with a clear path to consistent profitability, and meticulously preparing for an IPO or major acquisition with impeccable governance and compliance adherence. It's a marathon, absolutely not a sprint.
And how do earnings, valuation, and those strategic milestones all play together in this journey to $10 billion? It seems like they're constantly influencing each other in a complex dance.
They are indeed intricately linked, constantly in interplay, like a complex symphony, as you say. Earnings growth is about achieving a consistent upward revenue trajectory and, critically, a clear path to profitability, or actual profitability, showing the business model is viable and sustainable. Valuation drivers are then heavily influenced by market perception, things like your total addressable market, TAM, your competitive positioning, your demonstrated innovation capabilities, and, crucially, investor confidence in your leadership team's credibility and future growth prospects. Do they believe you can pull it off? Strategic milestones are those crucial inflection points. Successful geographic expansion into new territories, forging impactful partnerships, or making strategic acquisitions that expand your capabilities and achieving exponential customer base expansion. Each of these milestones, when hit, significantly contributes to increasing your perceived market value and therefore your valuation. They prove you're executing.
We often see these high-growth tech firms valued at what seems like extraordinary multiples of their revenue, 100x, sometimes even 1000x in rare cases. How does that work in practice? And why do tech startups in particular fetch such high multiples when they might not even be profitable yet? It seems nuts sometimes.
It can indeed seem extraordinary, almost counterintuitive, especially when a company might not yet be profitable. But it's a common, if sometimes volatile, framework for high-growth tech companies. A revenue multiple simply compares a company's market valuation to its annual revenue. So a company with, say, $100 million in annual revenue valued at $10 billion has a revenue multiple of 100x. These incredibly high multiples are not arbitrary or based purely on hype, usually. They're driven by several key fundamental factors. First, a rapid growth rate, because investors are betting on significantly higher future revenues in the coming years, not just current ones. They're buying the future. Second, a large untapped market size. The bigger the potential ocean, the more fish you can potentially catch, the higher the potential value. Third, incredible scalability, especially for software, which often has near zero marginal costs once developed. It allows to serve millions without significant additional expense. That's huge leverage. Fourth, a strong competitive moat, like proprietary technology, patents, or powerful network effects where the product becomes more valuable as more people use it. Hard to replicate.
And sometimes, it's about the strategic value a company holds for a potential larger acquirer looking to instantly gain market share or a new technology. We've seen this play out dramatically. LinkedIn, at its 2011 IPO, commanded an almost unheard of nearly 1,000x revenue multiple, $4.3 billion valuation on $243 million revenue. Why? Because of its clear dominance and the massive future potential of its professional network effect. More recently, Zoom Video Communications hit a nearly 60x multiple during its pandemic peak, $150 billion market cap on $2.6 billion revenue, due to its explosive, indispensable growth. Everyone needed it. Snowflake broke records in 2020 with an astonishing 260x multiple at its IPO, $70 billion valuation on just $265 million revenue, largely due to its innovative cloud data platform addressing a massive underserved market. Even established giants like Salesforce and Shopify have sustained high multiples for years due to consistent innovation, aggressive growth, and strong market positioning.
Tesla, while more of a manufacturing company, demonstrates a 26x multiple, $800 billion plus market cap on $31 billion revenue, reflecting its undisputed leadership in EVs and its profound potential to disrupt the entire energy sector. Investors see more than just cars. Tech startups fetch such high multiples because software can scale incredibly rapidly with near zero marginal costs. Network effects often create winner-takes-all dynamics in new markets. There's often vast, untapped potential for future revenue streams through new features or adjacent markets. And they present highly attractive strategic acquisition targets for larger companies seeking to instantly bolster their capabilities or enter new sectors. The risks, however, are also significant. Potential overvaluation, susceptibility to market volatility, and long-term profitability concerns. It's not guaranteed. For entrepreneurs, the lesson is clear. Focus intensely on hypergrowth and demonstrate undeniable scalability and a strong competitive moat. Build something valuable and defensible. For investors, it's about rigorously assessing the sustainability of that growth, understanding market dynamics, and, as always, diversifying investments. Don't put all your eggs in one unicorn basket.
Okay, beyond the valuation itself, how do companies actually track their progress towards these ambitious goals? What are the key growth metrics and projections used to guide a company towards, say, that $10 billion decacorn status? What do they actually look at day to day?
Right. Quantitative measures are absolutely essential for both internal management and for attracting investment. You need the numbers. Key metrics include revenue growth, the percentage change in revenue over a specific period, month over month, year over year, customer acquisition cost,
CC, which is the total sales and marketing expense divided by the number of new customers acquired. How much does it cost to get one customer? And its crucial counterpart, lifetime value, LTV, which is the total expected revenue a customer will generate over their entire relationship with the company. You calculate LTV by multiplying the average revenue per user by their average customer lifespan. You need LTV to be much higher than Tinky. You also monitor churn rate, the percentage of customers or revenue lost over time. Got to keep the customers you have. And burn rate, the rate at which cash reserves are being depleted, typically measured monthly. This directly informs your runway, or how long your cash reserves will last, calculated simply by dividing cash on hand by your burn rate. Crucial for survival. Projections can be modeled as linear growth, assuming a consistent, steady increase. But in high-growth startups, you're often looking at ambitious exponential growth, which reflects accelerating gains over time. You'd also run various profitability scenarios, including detailed break-even analyses and projections for profit margins at different scales. When do we actually make money? Valuation sensitivity analysis is key, too. It shows how small changes in key metrics, for instance, doubling your annual growth rate from 20% to 40%, can potentially exponentially increase your valuation. Shows the levers. The source provides compelling hypothetical examples. A high-growth SaaS startup reaching $32 million in annual recurring revenue, ARR, in just 5 years, while simultaneously improving its CAC-LTV ratio, an e-commerce company growing from $5 million to $20 million in revenue in 5 years by reducing churn. Or a clean energy enterprise achieving $37 million in revenue in 5 years, while critically reducing its monthly burn rate from $2 million down to $500,000. These metrics provide crucial insights for operational focus, investor alignment, and robust risk mitigation. You manage what you measure.
So bringing it all together then, what are some practical, actionable strategies for actually achieving that elusive unicorn or even better, decacorn status for a startup leveraging this equitable model? What do they do?
Okay, building on those metrics and the core philosophy, practical strategies for achieving decacorn status involve a few key things. First, innovating relentlessly. This means continuously iterating on products, exploring new technologies, and disrupting yourself before someone else does. Think of Tesla's constant innovation in EVs, battery storage, and even AI. Never stand still. Second, leveraging network effects where possible. For platforms or community-driven products, the value increases as the user base grows, creating a powerful virtuous cycle. Think Airbnb's growth, more hosts attract more guests, and vice versa. Third, optimizing capital efficiency. This is about prudent spending, maximizing impact from every dollar, and extending your runway as much as possible. Atlassian's famously low-cost, product-led marketing approach is a great example. Don't waste money. Fourth, building a strong brand with emotional connection. This means cultivating a compelling narrative and design that resonates deeply with customers. Apple's focus on user experience and aesthetics is the classic case. Make people want your product. Fifth, expanding thoughtfully. Prioritize aligned markets and geographies where you can establish a strong foothold before spreading too thin. Shopify did this well by methodically expanding its e-commerce ecosystem. Focus matters. And finally, and perhaps most importantly, cultivating exceptional leadership and a truly empowering culture. Strong, adaptive leadership combined with a positive organizational culture like Netflix's emphasis on freedom and responsibility are absolutely vital for navigating the immense complexities of hypergrowth. And this equitable model inherently supports that kind of culture, giving you a head start. Hashtag 4.2 governance and culture.
That brings us nicely to another critical component for any thriving organization, governance and culture. They go hand in hand. Beyond the equity split itself, how do you design governance structures that truly balance power among all these diverse stakeholders, the founders, the team, the investors, and the foundation? That sounds like a tricky balancing act.
It is tricky, but effective governance is the very foundation upon which sustainable growth is built. It's not optional. It defines the decision-making processes, shapes the distribution of power, and establishes clear accountability for everyone involved. The guiding principles here are profound but simple. Inclusivity, transparency, and accountability. Key components include a well-structured board of directors for strategic oversight and high-level decisions, independent advisory councils comprising subject matter experts, and, critically, representatives from the employee base bringing ground-level truth, and specialized stakeholder committees focused on areas like sustainability, ethics, or employee well-being. Balancing power means ensuring founders' influence is appropriate but balanced by independent board members or clear veto rights for specific critical decisions. Investors have adequate representation to protect their capital, but not excessive control that stifles others. And employee participation is structurally embedded through board representation or active advisory roles. It's about creating checks and balances at every level, ensuring no single group dominates unfairly.
And beyond these formal structures, there's the heart of the organization, right? It's corporate culture. This blueprint emphasizes 6 core values that sound incredibly important. Can you walk us through them? What do they mean in practice, day to day?
These 6 core values are indeed the backbone of success. They deeply influence how employees interact, make decisions, and collectively work towards ambitious goals. First, work hard. Now, this isn't simply about punching a clock or pulling all-nighters constantly that leads to burnout. It's about consistent effort, deep discipline, and showing up fully engaged every single day. But it also implies balance, as historical figures from Einstein, who valued periods of laziness for processing complex ideas, to the Dalai Lama, who stresses the importance of adequate sleep, have shown you need to be rested and present to perform at your peak. It demands a long-term perspective, much like the 10,000 hours of deliberate practice required for true mastery. It's about sustained, smart effort over the long haul. Second, play by the rules. This is absolutely foundational. It means adhering to fundamental ethical principles and legal frameworks. Think of them as universal guides, like basic human decency. Innovation is about challenging existing practices and conventional wisdom, yes, but not about violating ethical standards or laws. That destroys trust. This ensures integrity and shared values that bind the company internally and externally, the bedrock. Third, innovate. This is truly the lifeblood of any thriving organization in the age of abundance. It's an existential necessity to remain competitive. You innovate or you die, basically. It requires fostering a culture of boundless creativity, calculated risk-taking, and continuous experimentation. This means embracing new technologies, exploring unconventional solutions, and never ever resting on past successes. Leaders must actively champion and reward innovation at every single level. Fourth, treat people with respect. This is a fundamental, non-negotiable pillar. Diversity in all its forms is not just a moral imperative, but a profound competitive advantage. The best talent, the freshest ideas, and the most robust solutions can come from anywhere and anyone. This means actively rejecting all forms of discrimination. Racism, sexism, classism, ageism, ableism, everything. It means creating an environment where absolutely everyone feels valued, heard, and empowered to contribute their best. This is especially critical with global teams working across cultures. Fifth, communicate. This is the absolute lifeblood of any effective organization. It must be clear, timely, honest, and constant. Transparency is paramount, particularly with challenging or difficult news. As leaders like Bill Gates have emphasized, report issues immediately. Don't let them fester and become bigger problems. This value encourages open dialogue, honest feedback, even when it's tough, and active listening, ensuring everyone is on the same page and problems are addressed proactively. And sixth, serve. At its core, all truly successful business is about service. Service to customers, service to employees, and service to the broader community. This embraces the philosophy of servant leadership, where leaders exist primarily to support and empower their teams, removing obstacles and fostering growth. It profoundly encourages community engagement, whether through volunteering, mentorship, or direct action via the foundation, fostering a sense of purpose beyond pure profit. And these values are not isolated silos. They are deeply interconnected. They constantly reinforce and amplify each other. For example, hard work fuels innovation. Respect and communication are absolutely vital for effective service. It creates this powerful, virtuous cycle. It builds a deeply resilient, cohesive, and high-performing organization that truly embodies its mission and values.
What about practical policies to support these values? How do you actually promote inclusivity, health, and well-being for everyone on the team day to day?
Yeah, practical, tangible policies are absolutely essential to operationalize these values and make them real, not just words on a wall. For inclusivity, this includes robust anti-discrimination measures, proactive diversity recruitment programs to broaden talent pools beyond the usual suspects, and supporting employee resource groups, ERGs, that foster community and advocacy within the company. For health and wellness, it means comprehensive mental health support, think counseling services, stress management workshops, genuinely flexible work arrangements to reduce burnout. Physical health initiatives too, like on-site gyms or subsidized fitness memberships, wellness challenges. And critically, ensuring genuine work-life balance through reasonable working hours and generous paid leave policies. People need to recharge. Finally, employee empowerment comes through continuous training and development opportunities, robust recognition programs that celebrate contributions beyond just financial metrics, and effective, transparent feedback mechanisms that ensure every voice is heard and valued. The synergy between governance and culture is profound. They are truly two sides of the same coin, constantly influencing each other.
Governance reinforces culture by structuring transparency, embedding inclusivity, and demanding accountability at every level. The rules shape behavior. In turn, a positive culture informs governance
by guiding ethical practices and shaping strategic decision-making in a way that aligns with the company's deepest values. Behavior shapes the roles. When both are aligned towards shared goals and values, you create truly cohesive, high-performing organizations that are resilient, adaptable, and genuinely impactful. Hashtag tag tag 4.3, the future of equity and entrepreneurship.
Wow, we've covered a tremendous amount of ground today, really peeling back the layers of a truly visionary model for building companies. Let's bring it back to the core. How can the 30-30-30-10 model fundamentally redefine the startup landscape moving forward, not just for a few companies, but for the entire ecosystem?
The 30-30-30-10 model offers a truly transformative approach to equity allocation. It shifts the very paradigm of how companies are built and sustained. It fosters collaborative ecosystems by intrinsically aligning stakeholder interests, reducing internal conflicts, and crucially, embedding social responsibility directly into the company's foundational DNA. It profoundly empowers teams, transforming employees into genuine co-owners, which in turn dramatically boosts morale, productivity, and retention, making these companies magnets for top talent. It also effectively rebalances investor influence, mitigating the kind of excessive control that has sometimes plagued traditional startups, thereby promoting truly balanced governance and sustainable long-term growth. And of course, that 10% for the foundation significantly catalyzes social impact, creating a dedicated, robust resource pool to address societal challenges and enhance reputation from the outset, proving that profit and purpose can indeed thrive together beautifully.
This sounds incredibly powerful, almost like a universal operating system for new companies, maybe. But is this formula only for tech startups? Can it truly be scaled for global application across different industries and cultures? Or is it niche?
The principles are indeed universally applicable, I believe, but they absolutely require thoughtful adaptation to local contexts. You can't just copy-paste. Adapting to local context means tailoring the model to unique regulatory environments, respecting diverse cultural norms, and responding to specific market dynamics. This absolutely requires deep engagement with local stakeholders. Listen first. It's definitely not just for tech. Its principles can be powerfully integrated across various industries. It could bring profound benefits to traditional businesses, social enterprises, and even nonprofits who are looking for sustainable models. It's particularly well-suited for inherently mission-driven sectors like healthcare, education, and renewable energy, where societal impact is already a core objective. Leveraging technology for implementation through digital platforms for transparent equity management, streamlined governance, and precise impact measurement, and even exploring blockchain for enhanced transparency and security, makes it accessible and scalable globally. And finally, building global networks of organizations adopting this model can accelerate its widespread adoption and facilitate the sharing of best practices and learnings. Learn from each other.
And what are the broader implications of abundance economics, especially with a model like 30-30-30-10 at its heart, for society, for governance beyond just corporations, and for the very nature of innovation itself? This feels like it could touch everything.
The implications are indeed profound and far-reaching, potentially extending far beyond the individual company or even the business world. It begins with redefining wealth distribution. Fair equity distribution within companies naturally fosters greater economic inclusion, empowering previously underserved communities and translating economic gains into tangible, widespread societal benefits. Less concentration at the top. This could fundamentally transform governance structures, inspiring reforms not just in corporate governance, but potentially influencing broader public governance, promoting truly inclusive decision-making and robust accountability everywhere. It also significantly accelerates innovation by democratizing participation and unlocking diverse talent and creativity across society. Imagine the potential unleashed. That foundation component, for instance, could become a massive engine for funding critical research and education into grand global challenges like climate change, equitable healthcare access, and digital inclusion for all. Ultimately, it enhances global collaboration by fostering shared values and aligning businesses with global sustainability goals, such as the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Imagine, for instance, a healthcare startup that, through its foundation, structurally subsidizes life-saving treatments for low-income communities, or a tech startup integrating comprehensive digital literacy initiatives across entire regions, all structurally funded and guided by its dedicated foundation. This deep intertwining of purpose and profit could reshape the very fabric of our communities, making them more resilient and equitable.
You know, we've talked about the 30-30-30-10 as a powerful blueprint. But is it absolutely set in stone? Can there be variations or alternative equity structures? You mentioned one, like a 20-30-30-20 model, indicating even more flexibility or perhaps a different emphasis depending on the company.
That's a crucial point. Equity distribution is never a one-size-fits-all decision, and this framework acknowledges that. The 20-30-30-20 model is an excellent example of this inherent flexibility, reflecting adaptability and potentially a deeper, even more pronounced commitment to social responsibility, maybe tailored to a founder's specific vision. So to quickly recap the original, the 30-30-30-10 model allocates 30% each to founders, team, and investors, with 10% for the foundation. Standard. Now, with the 20-30-30-20 model, there's a deliberate shift. The foundation's share dramatically increases to 20%, doubling its impact potential, while the founder's initial personal allocation decreases to 20%. For founders, this means they start with a 20% personal stake, which is still substantial, right? But they have the unique option to allocate a significant part of that, say 10% directly to the foundation, while crucially retaining full voting rights over the entire 20% founder allocation. This is a profound way to align personal wealth creation with deep societal purpose, maintaining strategic influence while inspiring immense trust from all stakeholders. Is leading by example.
For the foundation, its expanded 20% allocation translates directly into significantly greater resources for social impact initiatives and enhanced stakeholder engagement. It allows it to become an even more powerful unifying force with a truly long-term vision. The allocations for investors and the team remain stable at 30% each. This preserves the principles of fairness and stability, so anti-dilution clauses still protect investors. Meaningful equity still motivates the team, even as the company emphasizes purpose even more strongly. The advantages of such alternative structures are clear. They can directly reflect the founder's deepest values and mission. They adapt perfectly to specific business needs, especially in inherently mission-driven sectors like nonprofits or B Corp, and they encourage further innovation in governance itself. We've seen founders like Mark Zuckerberg with the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative or Larry Page and Sergey Brin at Google retaining significant voting control, even as they've channeled vast wealth to philanthropic endeavors. Elon Musk has famously reinvested massive personal wealth back into his companies for long-term growth. These examples show how founders can leverage equity for various purposes beyond just personal financial gain. In fact, the source highlights even more potential configurations like 25-30-30, 15-30, 40-20-10, more for the team, or even 20-20, 40-20, more for investors, maybe a later stage, each with different emphasis depending on the company's unique mission, industry, and specific growth stage. Of course, there are challenges. Maintaining founder control with a conceptually smaller personal stake needs careful structuring. Clearly communicating the profound value of the increased foundation allocation is vital, and balancing all stakeholder expectations through radical transparency is key. But the flexibility makes it adaptable to nearly any entrepreneurial vision focused on both profit and purpose. #outro.
Wow, what an incredible deep dive into rethinking the very core of how companies are built, from the ground up. Today, we've truly explored not just a revolutionary new equity model, but really a holistic vision for how companies can be engineered, prioritizing fairness, driving unprecedented productivity, ensuring long-term sustainability, and embedding profound societal impact right into their DNA from day one.
Indeed. The 30-30-30-10 model and its flexible, adaptable variants like the 20-30-30-20 offers a truly transformative potential. It could redefine what success means for businesses in this burgeoning age of abundance. It's a potential blueprint for a more equitable, more impactful future.
Okay, so what does all of this mean for you listening right now? If startups are truly the engines of the age of abundance, driving us towards a world where traditional scarcity is overcome, and if this new equity formula can structurally embed purpose and fairness, then what profound societal shifts become possible? When profit and purpose are intertwined, not just as a mission statement on a website, but from a company's very inception, in its very structure. How might this reframe not just how we do business, but maybe the very fabric of our communities, and perhaps even our shared human future? Lots to think about there.
Absolutely. We encourage you to consider how these powerful principles might apply to your own work, maybe your investments or your entrepreneurial endeavors if you have them. Think beyond just the immediate financial returns, crucial as they are, and consider the long-term societal impact that's truly possible when these visionary frameworks are put into practice. The future, it seems, really can be built differently, perhaps one equitable startup at a time.